Hi everybody, and welcome to Once Upon a Scarf. This channel celebrates the art of the vintage scarf, from luxury silks to bandanas. Here we zoom in close to the wonderful stories they tell. Today we've got a vintage silk from the 1960s by the great Emilio Pucci. And today's question sounds pretty simple. Why does it look like this? The simple answer is, it's Pucci. He and his design team were responsible for detonating a glorious explosion of geometric, biomorphic, psychedelic prints across body-hugging silk jersey fabric. He started it all with scarves. But a more interesting question might be, how did a count from an ancient Florence noble family get from this to this? I'm the author of two classic books on vintage fashion, Secondhand Chic and It's Vintage Darling. I'm a huge fan of the luxury, affordability, and design history in great vintage scarves. I'm so happy to share what I know with you. So let's get down to it. What blew a button-down aristocrat into these blissed-out visions? That's a question I'd like to try to answer again and again with Emilio Pucci, because so many of his patterns tell a fascinating story. But let's stick to this one. The images here are immediately recognizable as silhouettes from the heart of historic Florence, Italy, Pucci's hometown. This is the Duomo Cathedral, the baptistry, and the bell tower that have molded the city's identity and skyline for over 600 years. It's said Emilio Pucci could see this cathedral cluster from the window of his family palazzo. It certainly buttressed the brand identity of his early fashion spreads. You can hardly find a 60s Pucci editorial without the Duomo poking up like a gigantic implant somewhere in the background. So in a way, these silhouettes became a house calling card. But why do these look like they were made from a jigsaw puzzle? Once again, there's a simple answer and a more interesting one. The simple answer is, Pucci tended to take forms and fracture them into pieces with brilliant bursts of color. It's just what he did, but this pattern is particularly weird, and it's also hauntingly familiar. It resonates. It means something, but it's hard to put our finger on what. It clearly meant something to Pucci when he first developed the print in the 1960s. Here we see it in a jumpsuit for an editorial shoot. The print even has a name, Torre, which means tower, but it doesn't look like regular brickwork or a horizontal skyline. So it seems noteworthy that this particular Torre print is so much a part of the Pucci identity that it has recently been revived as a house coat, a signature look. Now we find it as the flooring in Pucci shops. But why would a print called Tower be used in flooring? I think a hint lies in Emilio Pucci's biography. He served in World War II as a bomber pilot. His whole wartime story is one of intrigue, espionage, even torture and imprisonment. But for now, let's leave it to where, as a young man, he spent many tense hours flying over city centers with an idea to wiping out targets, if he didn't get shot down first. And that's when this pattern starts to make sense. Let's look at some bombing maps. Now let's look at an ancient bird's-eye view map of Florence. Now let's look at one of the iconic Italian futurist paintings from the 1930s. Now let's look one more time at the scarf. I think this pattern is called Tower, not just because of the obvious bell tower at its heart. There may be a double meaning. If we climb towers, especially ancient ones, and look down, what we see is this hodgepodge gridwork of ancient cities, which fit together just like a jigsaw, with curving streets and unexpected geometries. Even closer, this negative space down the center begins to look very much like a river. Is this Florence side-on and from above? It may be, which turns it from a groovy accessory into a mind-bending play on perspective and meaning. Did Pucci have it in him to create this kind of a head twist in a one-off silk design? Of course he did, because beneath the tailored suit and button-down appearance was a soaring impatience with doing things conventionally. The suit was a cover. What drove Emilio Pucci was a stunning ambition to put his mark on women's bodies and on the history of design, which is why his prints are absolutely timeless and absolutely worth collecting as works of art. Pucci found his calling card in motifs at the outer limits of perception, picked up on his travels, his encounters, even his bombing runs. He was a son of Florence for sure, and he was also one of its greatest visionaries. In a place that gave birth to Botticelli and Michelangelo, that's saying something. And that's today's scarf story. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more.